Lupin III has always been hugely popular all over the world, but only for its animated adaptations. Monkey Punch's original Lupin manga series gets barely any attention at all despite being amazing and hilarious. As for his other non-Lupin works, practically no one in the English-speaking anime community has even heard of them. While most Lupin media is pretty wide appeal, Monkey Punch's original works are proudly lowbrow, violent, sexual, and immoral. They're super cartoony, id-driven works about male heroes of questionable morality being comically badass within a highly irreverent world. Mankatsu, a sort of variety show that adapts all sorts of Monkey Punch stories, has yet to be subtitled in English to this day, despite containing quite a bunch of Lupin shorts which should normally be enough to draw mainstream fans' attention. One of the stories featured in the Mankatsu compilation, however, was adapted to animation before and obviously far better. This story is Alice, the crude, dark comedy tale of a vaguely Lupin and Jigen-esque duo trying to capture and destroy a nude, sexy android, almost like a more violent and sexual version of Chuck Jones' Roadrunner cartoons. Long before the Mankatsu TV show was ever a thing, Alice was brought to anime form in 1991 by Yuzo Aoki, a great animator, director, and storyboarder who's been there since the very first Lupin TV show, who even did the character designs for the Mystery of Mamo. Most notably, he's responsible for the most unfairly hated Lupin art style, that of the later episodes of the Pink Jacket TV series and the Gold of Babylon film. Well, thankfully, the industry itself took note of Aoki's great understanding of what makes Monkey Punch's original works tick, because he was the director of this underrated little OVA. Alice, however, is not Pink Jacket Lupin, to say the least. Even the original Lupin manga's more mean-spirited attitude doesn't come close to this OVA, which reaches some crazily over-the-top levels of uncomfortably hilarious strangeness. The entire premise is that the protagonist's insanely evil father wants revenge on Alice, a girl who supposedly betrayed him, constantly pursuing her and her new lover to the point of driving them to suicide. This is not nearly enough to please the crazy bastard, though, who takes Alice's body and reprograms her brain to create an immortal sex cyborg that will please him for the rest of his life. Being a decrepit old man, though, the rest of his life meant barely any time at all, which isn't helped by the fact that shortly before his death, Alice runs away, leaving him for dead. In his dying breaths, he's discovered by his multi-billionaire son, the equally villainous Don Jirocho, who he entrusts his revenge upon. Thus, it is Jirocho's job to take on and attempt to destroy this constantly horny, super-powered cyborg. So, yeah, whenever people complain about how misogynistic and offensive your average mainstream anime is, it feels more like they're talking about this sort of thing. If this anime had your average old-school OVA execution, it would be just deeply uncomfortable and awkward to watch, but thankfully it's pure Monkey Punch. And so, this seemingly unworkable premise manages to be turned into a deeply inappropriate yet strangely very enjoyable cartoon comedy. While Pink Jacket and Mamo were pretty close to looking like a Monkey Punch manga to begin with, they still had a bunch of stylistic visual quirks that were unique to Aoki. While this served the male characters quite well, female characters in Pink Jacket looked a tad awkward and lacked a fully Monkey Punch look. This OVA, however, goes all the way, trying to look as close as possible to Monkey Punch's own raw, super dynamic drawing style. It could have done with some of Pink Jacket's animation staff, as it kind of feels like the poses and expressions aren't being pushed quite as much as they should be, but overall it's a very loving and accurate interpretation of the kind of stuff the author drew during his prime. Aoki and the rest of the anime staff have a top-notch understanding of Monkey Punch's Mad Magazine-inspired, yet ultimately still very unique art style. As for the actual subject matter, it's something far more niche than even the Lupin manga and not quite as mind-blowingly amazing. The main characters are a bit bit too villainous to have the charm of the Monkey Punch equivalents of Lupin, Jigen, Zenigata, and the rest, who are already more villainous than their anime counterparts to begin with. But on the other hand, they're not really glorified either. Alice is a selfless hero, while Jirocho and his right-hand man are the butt of the joke the great majority of the time. And above all else, as uncomfortable as this OVA can get at times thanks to the whole rapey subtext, I don't think it's nearly as bad as the Fujiko series. The characters in Alice are supposed to be obviously horrible, while in Fujiko you have the protagonist who's supposed to be this glorious, empowering female figure. And yet her actions near the end of the series are just absolutely reprehensible and completely unjustifiable. And while I don't want to spoil too much in case you want to watch it eventually, yeah, it involves a character that was tortured and raped horribly. I consider the Lupin manga better than Alice, but that doesn't make Alice any less underrated. Even if you can't get past the premise, it's still hard to reasonably deny how well made it is. It's a successful animated adaptation of an awesome creator's work by a director who understands said creator's style perhaps better than any other anime industry figure. And in that regard, it's a gem to anyone who enjoys a bit of super offensive dark comedy delivered in a gloriously cartoony manner.